What's up guys, welcome to Freedive Passion. Today I'm going to talk about CO2 contractions, how to delay them from your dives, or how to get rid of them completely from your diving. So CO2 contractions are the most commonly known source of contractions, and they're caused by a higher level of carbon dioxide rising up in your body, which then triggers the urge to breathe and causes you to contract. Now, in all honesty, CO2 tolerance is my biggest weakness as a freediver. I can freely admit to that. I hate training high levels of CO2, and I've gotten as far as I have, 65 meters constant weight, 120 meters no limits in a comfortable way without doing any actual serious high level CO2 training. Other forms of training can get you really far in freediving, as I'm slowly proving for myself, but I'll readily admit that at some point, if I want to go deeper, at some point I'm gonna have to start to make friends with higher levels of CO2. I'm going to have to start doing CO2 training, or just stop going deeper, and it's gonna be a tough choice. But in general, my main problem with CO2 training and the way CO2 training is being approached is that people are doing it way too soon in their progression as freedivers. If you're a 30, 40 meter, even 60 meter diver, and you're getting contractions on the way down, the source is most probably not CO2. There's other types of training that will be much more useful for you in order to delay or put off these contractions. And that's kind of the reason why I started to do this contraction series. But if it is time for you to start doing CO2 training, the most common form of CO2 training is the CO2 table. Probably everybody out there already knows what a CO2 table is. Essentially, it's a fixed breath hold. The time between each breath hold, each repetition of this breath hold, gets shorter after each hold. So the idea is you start each breath hold with a higher level of carbon dioxide than the previous one. But for me, training CO2, it should mean you're training yourself to be more and more comfortable with these higher levels of CO2. And a traditional CO2 table, it doesn't give you such a nice way to gauge if you are getting more comfortable. It's not really teaching you to be more comfortable, because actually the whole point is to feel worse and worse and worse over the course of the table. You have to remember the point that you start to contract, it's not a fixed point. It's just the point where you reach a level of discomfort where your body starts to react. I spoke about this in the first video in this contraction series. If you haven't watched the other videos, you should watch them. They're all, I believe, going to be much more useful to you and most of the people who are watching these videos than this one specifically. But to get back to CO2 training, if you want to understand if you are teaching yourself to delay contractions, if you are teaching yourself to be more and more comfortable with carbon dioxide, then it's important to start each breath hold with the same level of carbon dioxide. Then you know if you're going longer before contractions, it's because you're getting better at tolerating CO2. So for this, I can recommend two exercises which I've used myself and I quite like, and are kind of gentle, and you don't have to have any dread or fear going into them. The first one is what's called no contraction holds. So no contraction holds are a series of breath holds, let's say somewhere between 4 and 8, you could even do 12. And you just hold your breath until you get your first contraction, or until just before you get your first contraction. Then you give yourself a nice long breathe up in between, 3-4 minutes, and you start your next breath hold again until you feel the first urge to breathe. And you'll probably notice as you're going on through the tables, and as you do these tables over a longer period of time, you'll be able to go longer and longer until you start to react to this high level of CO2 and contract. The second type of training that I like to do is choosing a fixed time that you know you'll normally get quite a few contractions in, let's say 8 contractions. Let's just say, for the purpose of explanation, that's 3 minutes. Now what you want to do is each time you do the breath hold, you count how many contractions you get. So the first time you do it, 3 minutes, 8 contractions. Then the next time you do it, you want to try and have less contractions than the time before. So you'll try and just maybe put the first contraction off a little bit longer, try and have longer gaps between each individual contractions until you can have just 7 in that time, and then 6, and then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, until you can do the whole breath hold with no contractions. At that point, you can add, let's say, 20 seconds. So now you're doing 3-minute 20 breath holds. And this is going to be like over a period of time. So maybe it's going to take a month until you can do 3 minutes with no contractions. At that point, you add, let's say, 20 seconds on, and you start to do that again for another month until you can do 320 with no contractions, and then add again. I'm sure you understand what I'm talking about. So both of these tables are increasing the amount of tolerance that you have to CO2 before that CO2 starts to feel uncomfortable for you. And the nice thing about these tables is you're slowly increasing your level of comfort with the CO2 in a gentle way, without having to push, without having to suffer. So you're less likely to become overtrained because it's so mentally taxing. You're more likely to actually do the training because it can be actually quite enjoyable and relaxing. And obviously the more you train and the smarter you train, the quicker your progression is going to become. Now at some point you're also going to have to learn to deal with contractions. Like at some point they're gonna come, your body's just gonna start to react. The CO2 is just going to be higher than what you can be relaxed with. So to train that, you're just gonna have to do like long holds or more traditional CO2 training. But honestly, like that's advanced stuff. Like you guys don't need to do it. I'm sure most of you guys who are watching this, you know, you're not 100-meter divers. I'm not doing it yet. I don't need to do this yet. Can it be useful? Yeah, for sure. Should it be like a staple of your training? Should you be doing this all the time? I think not. So until next time, guys, train smart, enjoy the winter, try and do something every day just to get a little bit better. And until next time, take it easy and dive safe.